So if the bulk of this video looks like it's shot on a phone from 2011, that's because it has been shot on a phone from 2011. This is my Samsung Galaxy S2. It has an 8 megapixel camera and it will shoot at 1080p. It's not going to be beautiful, but it'll do the job. There are 3 rules that I like to live by when I'm organising my phone. Those 3 rules are: number 1, I cannot have apps that go onto a second page. All of my apps must be within one page. The second rule is that there cannot be more than 9 apps within one folder. So for example, over here I've only got 9 apps. If I was to have another one, I'd get these 2 little dots up at the bottom, and I'd also get this. So if I was to look at my home screen, I cannot see that calculator app in there because it's hidden away. So I absolutely cannot have that. My third rule is that I cannot have any of these dots. So for example, this little number 1 here tells me that I've got a message there. I cannot have any messages in there, which really spurs me on to try and unsubscribe to things that I don't really need anymore and make sure that I'm a bit more efficient with my phone. So when organising my phone, what I try to do is organise things from top to bottom and from left to right, in order of which is most commonly used and which is the most important. I get a bit anxious about my batteries. There's nothing worse than running out of battery life, especially if you're hotspotting your phone to your other things like, say for example, your iPad or your MacBook. There's nothing worse than running out of battery. So I like to have it at the top. It also helps me for, say for example, seeing how much battery life I have in my other gadgets and devices. So next would be my camera. Now the camera is on the top left underneath the batteries, and I find that the most useful thing, I've got in the workflow of using the camera app there, and I just automatically go to that position, so I don't want to move it anywhere else. I know there's other ways that I can access the camera app. I can come down and access the camera app through here. I can also access the camera app by clicking on this. And I know you can access the camera app by swiping left on the screen. However, I've got used to using the camera app over here, and that's my automatically go-to place for finding the camera app. Okay, next is my social media. I don't find this really important, but it is something that I use a lot. Facebook, of course, I use it all the time. Miscellaneous, I find Miscellaneous is kind of like a social media. There's a lot of people who get in touch with me DMs and ask me specific questions about products. YouTube channel is something that I'm really looking to grow on. I find that really helpful to see your engagement and your interactions and when people send messages to you. Instagram, of course. Twitter is something that I find that I use a lot when, kind of at the end of the day, I don't have much energy left and I've got sort of an hour left and I'm just sitting in bed, or maybe just that time when you sort of just woke up and you've not got your full attention ready. I find Twitter's great for just scrolling through stuff. Pinterest, Discord. I tend to come back to those every now and then. Okay, next is money. This isn't just money, this is about buying and selling things that I generally tend to use money with. I don't tend to use money tracking on my planner. I tend to use it on a spreadsheet because I can use the macros. Sterling Bank is a fantastic bank that I've started to use more often. You can use things like you've got your spaces that I find incredibly useful, and it's something that I don't have with HSBC. Although HSBC to me is a more sort of old school, sturdy, definitely reliable bank, but it's not as flexible and dynamic as the new banking systems are. Wallet, of course, because that's where I keep all my cards. PayPal, Coinbase is something that I used when I was playing around with cryptocurrency. eBay, Amazon, and AutoTrader are for buying stuff. Now the Amazon app, I tend to use Amazon through the web browser, but if I see a link to something I find interesting and I click on the link, it won't open it in the web browser. It'll automatically try and take me to the App Store and encourage me to download and install the app. It's just easier if I download and install the app. So I've downloaded it and I've installed it. You win, Amazon. Next is health and fitness. Fitbit, of course, I use every single night because the sleep tracking is way better than the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch native sleep tracking I find is pretty awful. iHealth, I use iHealth because of I used to use the bathroom scales, but now I just use the blood pressure monitor. I don't really have problems with blood pressure, but I don't really need an excuse to buy a gadget and have an app to track all the data. And I'm a total geek for data. I love collecting and organising and keeping data about all sorts of stuff. FeelFit is the bathroom scales that I got off Amazon. It's absolutely fantastic. It measures all my data for my weight, my body mass, and my skeletal muscles and visceral fat and all that sort of stuff. Fitness is something that I buy into because I buy the Apple One plan. Because I use the music, my family uses the music, and we also have the arcade. The health app is pretty atrocious. I find that the health app pulls in the information from the other app, so it's a great place to collect the information. But as for using the information, it's pretty much terrible. Now, running. I've not decided whether I want to keep Strava, MyFitnessPal, or Work Outdoors. Work Outdoors has a great Apple Watch app and it gives you maps and stuff like that. But when it comes to it, I think Strava's better because I have most of my friends on Strava. So come to the end of this year, after the summer, I'm going to make my final decision about which running app I'm going to use. NHS app, of course, because of the pandemic we recently had. And it was also helpful to have your records on there. Mail. I have several different email accounts and I like to have different apps for the different email accounts. So my Gmail I use through the Gmail app, but the Proton Mail I use for more important things. So for example, my utilities, I use my Proton Mail, solicitors, that sort of stuff. Anything important, I use my Proton Mail app, and my Gmail is for all the other things. Mail I tend to use because Apple likes to use iCloud, so I keep that. And this is for school communication for my children. Now, maps isn't just maps, it's everything to do that I use in a map sort of way. So for example, my car dash cam, it's to do with mapping and driving, so it goes in here. Weather apps, I've got two, I don't know which one I'm going to keep. I tend to go for the Met Office. I want to get rid of one of my maps, but at the moment, Apple Maps just isn't anywhere near as good as Google Maps, I find. National Trust. If you have children and you live in the United Kingdom, you probably know about National Trust. It's a great place to take children on days out. I also find that I plan my holidays based on what National Trusts are around. So I'll find a campsite near somewhere with got 2 or 3 National Trusts, and we'll go to day trips out in National Trust. Petrol prices, Rightmove selling houses, and work. Outlook I find is a terrible app. I really don't like using it on my phone. It's there for just in case, but it also allows me to send the push notifications through to my Apple Watch, which is absolutely fantastic. Being able to tap into my emails throughout the day on the go means that I'm aware of what email conversations are happening, and I can start to formulate my answers throughout the day. And I can also reply to emails from my watch and delete unnecessary ones, helping me get back to inbox 0. Teams is something I used a lot during lockdown. It was really great to be able to join a video call from your mobile phone or have a second entry point into a video conference. And I still use that when we have online meetings. It's absolutely great, but it's not something I would use if I had a choice. I'd rather use my iPad or my MacBook. Workspaces is great for accessing my work system. It's been an absolute godsend to be able to log into my work account on my mobile phone. It's been a real saver. Office is not the greatest of user interfaces on a mobile phone, but in a pinch, it's a real great thing to have around. Stagecoach is a bus company I use to get from work and back. It goes in here because it's to do with work. I was umming and ahhing about maybe fitting it into maps or maybe fitting it to money because I spend on it, but the system isn't perfect and I'm trying to go from top to bottom and left to right in order of most used and most important, but I've never been able to get the system quite right. Utilities, of course, settings and the App Store are used a lot. My home kit is used quite a lot, especially I've got music and light bulbs which fit into that. My washing machine works perfectly with that. I love that washing machine. I just wish it would integrate into HomeKit better. Apple Watch, I never really use the app anymore. I've got my workflow set up and the updates happen automatically, so I never really go into this. My heating is controlled through an app. I've got it all set up automatically, so yeah, I never really use that anymore. 3, this is my mobile phone. Now I pay a set amount a month, about £20 to get unlimited everything. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want to have the background process of trying to figure out whether I've got enough data to download this or to watch this or to tether with this item. I don't want to be thinking about whether I've got enough minutes left to make a phone call. I just want to have peace of mind. So for £20 a month and a SIM-only contract, I get to never think about this issue again. And to me, that peace of mind is worth every single penny. Nanoleaf I've got on there because I need to use Nanoleaf app to update the firmware of the light bulbs that I've got. Okay, files. I never really use the Google Drive much. I use the files for airdropping things to other people. I use that quite a lot. But then files for the Google Drive is in here because it's all to do with files and they get to stick together in the same folder. Okay, photography. I'm falling out of love with the Canon apps. I'm finding that the interfaces are a bit clunky. They don't always connect perfectly. And I find that since I bought my Apple Watch, I'm using the remote control of my Apple Watch a lot more than I would do for these. I also find it really hard to get good film of my cameras, and I'm finding that I use my mobile phone a lot more, which means that I'm using Filmic and Filmic Remote a lot more than I am using my Canons. That said, I can get great pictures off my Canon, not great video, and I prefer not to use these. However, they are great on a pinch. If I'm, say for example, on a holiday and I need to get the picture off my camera, I don't have my MacBook or any of my dongles with me, then I will use the app. So it's been great every now and then. The DJI Mimo, how you pronounce it, I use it a lot with my gimbal, and it's fantastic for what it is. I'm not 100% with using the gimbal yet. I think you need a lot of experience and a lot of practice getting the most out of the gimbal, and I'm just not there yet. Lightroom is great for every now and then. I would use it if I'm on holiday or I'm waiting for a bus or something and I want to take a picture or I want to edit a picture. I will use the Lightroom. It's absolutely fantastic for that. Productivity, of course, GoodNotes is the lifesaver, and I use it all the time to work in with my my planner. To have access to it on your mobile phone, which I almost always have on me, is a real lifesaver. Clock I use every now and then for setting alarms. If I've got a week of work and I don't need the alarm, then I use that to turn my alarm on and off. The calendar app is great for trying to figure out what days are when in sort of 2 or 3 years time. I use that fairly often. I never really use notes or reminders, although I do have it on there. I feel like it's something that I am going to need, and as soon as I delete it, I'll find that I need it. But then when it's on there, I never use it anyway. But yeah, calculators. This app is absolutely terrible. I can't stand this app. Sure, it's great for quick calculations, but other than that, it just really is atrocious. It looks great, and if you tilt it on its side, you get a more scientific calculator. However, this calculator is awful. How do you do fractions on this calculator? And if I want to type in something that's a bit more complicated, I can't see what I've typed into my calculator to get the answer that I've got. I don't know what I typed in to get 96. Sure, it looks great. If you do want to use a good calculator app, the Geogebra calculator app is absolutely fantastic. If I want to type in something here, I can clearly see what I've typed in and I can see what the answer is. I can type more complicated things into this. I can also easily type in fractions. Brilliant calculator, absolutely free. I'd highly recommend people use this one. Okay, books. What I tend to have with my books is I tend to have the Kindle app, which I use as a point of reference for when I'm using my other apps. So for example, if I'm studying something and I want to say, figure this out, I would use this to reference back to my answers. It's really handy to have that accessible on another screen so you're not cluttering up your workspace. And the same goes for books as well. Next is Miscellaneous. Got a guitar tuner, compass, translate. These are things that I use every now and then. Not worth getting rid of them, but not really worth having them up high at the top because I'm not used that frequently. Games. I don't really play games on my phone much. If we're sort of waiting for food in a restaurant, then we might use these. My boy plays a lot of Xbox, so I like to keep a tab on what he's playing and how much time he's spending on the Xbox. I've tried to lay out my apps in order of the most frequently used from top to bottom and left to right, but also the most important from top to bottom and left to right. The system isn't perfect, and I've never been able to get it perfect. It's the least worst system that I've tried. It also leaves out this bottom bar, which don't seem to fit into here. But I've got used to the workflow of having these at the bottom. And one of the reasons why these are at the bottom is because they are my quick go-to ones, and I can use my thumb to get easy access to all my most frequently used items. Now, it's not necessarily the most frequently used, it's just that these categories are the most frequently used. So for example, I just about never use Tumblr, but I do use YouTube all the time. So I've got my internet, which I use different accounts for different browsers, and the VPN, which I'll come back to in a minute. I've got my communications. I use Signal and WhatsApp for group messages. A lot of my closer friends are on Signal, but I also have a lot of group chats in WhatsApp where people don't want to download more apps on the phone, so they're happy to just keep to WhatsApp. I have Messengers because there's quite a few people who prefer to talk through Messenger, so I have it on there just for those people, but It's not my communication app of choice. And of course your messages, I only ever use a normal text message for two-factor authentication. I just about never contact or talk to people through text message. Entertainment, I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I find it absolutely fantastic. Occasionally I'll find something on Netflix that I really want to watch. I've been watching The Last Kingdom a lot and I've really enjoyed that. Amazon Prime, again, there'll be stuff on there occasionally that I really want to watch. TikTok to me is very similar to Twitter. It's something that I will use when I've spent all my energy in the day, but I've still got sort of an hour left before bedtime, or I've got some time to kill while waiting for a bus or something. Curiosity and Nebula got as a package for not very much a year, got a really good discount. I never really go to them anymore. I've watched a few things that I signed up to, and I'm just waiting to see how it goes the rest of the year. If I don't get much more use out of it, I'll probably not resubscribe to it. Tumblr is something that I used when I first started using social media. There's a few things on there that I sometimes refer back to, but I don't really use it very much anymore. Audio is something that I use pretty much all the time. I listen to so many audiobooks, it is unbelievable. Spotify and music, I have both. I need to decide which one I want to keep. I much prefer Spotify. I find the curation Spotify is way better. I find that Apple Music pushes a lot of terrible songs that I'm just not interested in, whereas Spotify seems to just get it right. I also find that my playlists are easier to set up and access through Spotify than my playlists through Apple Music. However, I do have the Apple One subscription, so I'll probably keep Apple Music and get rid of Spotify. Utunes, Infinite Tunes, I don't really know how to pronounce that. I find that I listen to a lot of the big band Swing Got Radio and the Got Radio 90s music, but English adverts are horrendous for the radio. There's nothing quite as bad as English radio advert. If I use a VPN, I can get adverts from, say, France or Spain or America, which I find are not as bad as the English adverts. Shazam. Now, I know I can access Shazam from here, and I can also access Shazam from, say, my Apple Watch, but I've got into the workflow of having that here. So I will access that. So I'll access it here as an automatic go-to rather than having to flick through the different menus. Amazon Music, I have it on there because I subscribe to the Amazon Prime service, and Amazon Music is included in that. I would listen to it a bit more, but I find it incredibly frustrating that it's always trying to upsell me onto another service. So for example, The Weeknd, if I wanted to listen to that, I wouldn't be able to access the service, and that's something I find incredibly frustrating. It's also the reason why I don't like Apple TVs, because you don't know which other services you have to subscribe into. Whereas Spotify, you know that everything on there you can access and you don't have to think about tiering. Which brings us on to the headphones. I bought these headphones, they are the Sony MX3s. I kind of like them. I'm essentially deaf when listening to them because the noise cancellation on these is absolutely fantastic. However, I do find that the Plantronic Backbeat Pros from about 6 years ago are more suited. I much prefer the dial clicky knob things, and I also much prefer the fitting of them for my particular headphones, although these are really good and I do enjoy them. And that is how I organise my mobile phone. Obviously, I have a different backdrop on, a family picture that I'm not going to have on for the video, but yeah, how do you organise your mobile phone? I really liked making this video, and if you like watching the video, I'd appreciate if you would like the video. And if you want to see more, make sure you subscribe.